This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. In the studio today, we're going to get a chance to start off a discussion with the wonderful team over at the eye clinic at HSA. So we ask you, if you want to learn more, be informed and involved, well, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, welcome back, and thanks again for joining us. I'm very grateful for this continued partnership with the Health Services Authority. Not only does it highlight the continued improvements and the wonderful services that are available, but it may remind us as teachers and as parents of the possible opportunities that exist within the healthcare sector. So today, as we talk to ophthalmologist and cornea and glaucoma specialist, Dr. Sarati, make sure I get that right today.
Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon. How are you today?
Yeah, good. We got the clinic, and then we are working for the people, and we are very happy to help the people.
Well, thank you very much. And I think it's important that we talk about, especially when we look at the whole idea of Glaucoma Awareness Month, and many of us appreciate it. But that's the Benson. Sometimes we don't always appreciate the importance of the interaction between us and our primary care providers, and sometimes our eyes, we just don't see ourselves, in the same light. So you help us to appreciate it, right?
Yes, we do. We try to work very hard, and I liaise between the patients and the doctors and do all of the testing that's required for them. And so we are a good team, and we try to do the best that we can.
All right. Now, glaucoma, we've heard often, sometimes we associate it with certain things. Would there be a good starting point to maybe ask, what is glaucoma? How does it impact us? How do we get it? Is it hereditary? I mean, different things. Would those be good starting points to kind of gather?
Yeah, I would like that Diane will introduce about the epidemiology, because obviously, so as what the first answer could be the natural one, what is glaucoma? Mm-hmm. Sometimes the patient can confuse that glaucoma is the sickness of the pressure, but really is the disease of the optic nerve. So when we have the optic nerve that doesn't work very well, and so we have glaucoma, and most of times it depends on the high pressure. That is not the cause of the problem, but is the risk factors. And then so we need to analyze the optic nerve first and its function, and so that is the glaucoma disease mainly. And I would like that Diane can introduce the how important is the diagnosis, early diagnosis of glaucoma, because you can understand through the numbers, and the epidemiology in the world, in the Caribbean area, and the Cayman Island.
Understand?
So glaucoma is actually one of the leading causes of blindness in the Caribbean. So particularly in the African population, up to 7% of populations in the Caribbean will have glaucoma. And we kind of call it the silent thief of sight because often people don't even know that they have it. And it can be causing damage to the optic nerve before they even realize. So in the early stages, there are no symptoms. There's no pain or any outward sign of trouble that a patient would even know. And so who's at risk are people that are over 40, have family members with glaucoma, are African, Hispanic, or Asian heritage, have eye pressure, those that are very nearsighted or farsighted, if you've had a previous eye injury, also long-term use of steroid medications, if your cornea is thin, and also if you have if you're diabetic or high blood pressure. So the screening is very important to catch it early, and we have all of the diagnostic equipment to be able to determine, with the doctor, if there is a risk of glaucoma.
Yeah. What is that screening process? We hear screening for different, ailments, from the prostate to the mammogram, different things being utilized. What's the screening for glaucoma?
So the screening process is completely different than the other eye issue because most of times when I ask the patient, do you have any history family for glaucoma? Oh no, my relatives, my parents, they didn't get any glasses, but because the patient always consider the vision, but most of the time the glaucoma patient can hold the vision integrous until the end. That is very so. Glaucoma in this case is very, very different than other eye issue. So I recommend the patient, especially the patient that has the family history with glaucoma, to go to the specialist because most of the times I explain to Diane that being ophthalmologist and being glaucoma specialist is completely different because the setup is different. So we need to, first of all, we need to analyze the optic nerve and the specific investigation about the optic nerve that can give us the feedback if the patient is glaucomatous or not glaucomatous.
Okay. We're familiar with the optometrist and ophthalmologist, and some of us will understand the significant difference. And if you wish to expound, help us.
Sure.
We certainly appreciate that.
So optometrists are trained to do refractions, and they can do the primary investigations as well. They will do the screenings for diabetics or glaucoma. So when you go to the optometrist for glasses, they usually do the little air puff test, and so they can measure the pressure and they can also assess the optic nerve and see if there's any changes, and then at that point they can do the referral if they think it's a suspect of glaucoma. So the ophthalmologists are medical doctors and specialize, and so they are the surgeons and they're the ones who, would start to manage the glaucoma once they would make the final diagnosis and then start the treatment. And then, so it's good if you have an annual eye exam, even from the optometrist, if you just need your new glasses, and then they can assess and send you on if need be.
All right. So, with the example that Nurse Diane shared with us, we go maybe just for that regular check, or maybe we realize that there's a change in our vision when we're reading or what we're doing. Yeah. And the optometrist, does the sight on the wall with the lines and the numbers and all those things, and then the puff of air in our eyes. Two things with great sort of respect to the practitioner, but also for us as the patient to appreciate that there's an interaction. So when we go there, the optometrist in this instance, the machine is being used. We have to ensure that is, proper and so Dr. Grady?
So the optometrist check is according to my long experience that I had as lead of department in UK in the big hospital, county hospital. So the optometrist is the main figure of this step because the optometrist doing the check, the visual check, can observe some abnormality of the optic nerve and even the pressure, because I told you that the pressure is one of the main risk factors of having glaucoma. It's not the single one, because we need to consider a lot of parameters, but the optometrist during the examination can see the abnormal optic nerve that usually is a cup that is we can have on the head of the optic nerve, and the diameter of this cup can give to the optometrist the suspect of glaucoma. And in this case, most of the time they refer the patient to us with the referral letter. So that patient has the pressure borderline or over the normal limits, and the cupping is the abnormal. I don't want to say some difficult word that the patient can't understand very well, but the optometrist can observe the optic nerve head, and most of the time, if they found the abnormal optic nerve, they do the referral letter to us.
Okay. And then, as I understand, I was sharing, there is a difference in sort of their approach with screening. So optometrist has done that. How is that now when the referral is given and come over to the ophthalmologist? What is different? The puff air was done by the optometrist.
Correct.
You come over, and what would you expect then when you see the ophthalmologist?
So we have some more diagnostic equipment that can assist with the diagnosis. So first one is called a visual field machine, so we can check the function of the optic nerve and see if there's any damage to the peripheral vision. And we also have a machine called an OCT, and that takes a photograph of the nerve fiber layer of the optic nerve straight through all of the layers, so we can see if there's been any change. And so by having that, it's really key to be able to monitor the patients over time and see if there's any gradual changes, and if the doctor then would need to make any adjustments with the treatment. For example, they might need to add some more drops for the patients to use. And we keep all of those photographs in the database, and then every time the patient comes, they get another photograph, we assess the nerve, the doctor looks at it, and then we can do a trend analysis, so we can really monitor exactly what's going on. And then if it continues to progress, then the doctors would perhaps decide to do then some more invasive treatments, which would be surgery.
Yeah, there are three step of medication. First of all, the importance of those investigations is because we open the trend of the patient, and we can follow, because sometimes the patient can develop glaucoma after seeing them as a follow-up after 5 or 8 years. But if we have the trend, we are able to do the diagnosis correctly, and early diagnosis, because the early diagnosis is very important.
So would then, given that, as you ask sometimes your patients in the history, and they say, oh no, everybody could see without glasses, is it then important that even if we're doing the regular checks with our optometrists, and it may look good, we rely on the optometrist to make an early diagnosis, as it were, to somehow at some point come to the ophthalmologist just for peace of mind, just for a better approach to your health, eye health?
I think that the optometry is a very good first line, and they would be able to catch anything suspicious. So we usually work on a referral basis, so that when the patients are coming, we're pretty certain that there is an issue that needs to be treated or monitored a lot more closely. All
right, we'll take the break, and when we come back, maybe we could ask you, we talked about diabetes earlier, if there's any correlation or causation, even cataracts and other issues that we may be more familiar with, but even a few that perhaps a bit rare or not as prevalent here given the size of the population. And then expand it so that people understand that, like anything else, our eye health. My mother would say, sell them in the supermarket, So, all right. We're going to pause and take that break. When we come back, we invite you to join us. Stay tuned.
Freedom, Kim and Brack. Freedom, little Kim.
Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray, and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
This year's National Heroes Day ceremony takes place on Monday, 24th January.
Due to COVID-19, the event is not open to the general public and is by invitation only.
All uniformed services award recipients are advised that no awards will be presented on Monday. Special ceremonies will be held at a later date for uniformed services recipients on Grand Cayman and in Cayman Brac.
Monday's National Heroes Day ceremony will air live on Radio Cayman and on CIGTV's Facebook and YouTube pages, beginning at 9 a.m.
The bust of the Cayman Islands' newest national hero, the Honorable Leela Ross Shire, will be unveiled along with the theme for the National Heroes Day 2023.
For more information, email the Protocol Office on nationalevents@gov.ky or call 244-1780.
How do I lose weight and keep it off?
I can't just eat salads. Have you tasted my family's rundown? And oh, what about the turtle meat?
These are common questions I hear from people when it comes to weight loss. Learn how to lead a healthier lifestyle, the one you desire, and successfully manage your weight with my proven step-by-step process and my new book, New Shoes, A Journey of Self-Discovery.
Working with Donna has helped me create a healthier lifestyle. Old habits are no longer a challenge. If you're looking for help in managing life, reducing weight, and maintaining a lifestyle that fits your wellness goals, Donna Mitchell is the coach you need.
New Shoes, A Journey of Self-Discovery has been tried and tested on hundreds of participants in the Cayman Islands and is available on Amazon and Kindle. Order your copy today. Visit inspiredwithdonna.com for more details.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And it's a good chance, for us to be able to be better informed, for some of us to be, completely advised that we have such a fantastic team over at the eye clinic. When the Lions Club Grand Cayman facilitated this construction, I think they were visionary, no pun intended, and bringing it. Imagine that, not even Friday, he made it. Ophthalmologist and the glaucoma specialist over at HSA's eye clinic, Dr. Imanos Rati, together with, as he would say, what makes the office work and tick in the patients. Appreciative Nurse Diane Benson, because that partnership is what really facilitates the quality of care. The patient is ushered in, seated, made comfortable, and feels the competence, and then be able to, proceed over time. As we were going into the breakdown, I want to just quickly maybe revisit before we ask about, further things about glaucoma and the like. You're talking about following the patient and taking the photographs over time. Is that, dependent on the severity of the presentation, or is it an annually, so that maybe over 5-8 years time you see a pattern emerge? What sort of timeline are we looking at?
So it depends. It depends how severe is glaucoma, because there are different grade of glaucoma. For the standard one, so the patient that have a good and stable trend by medication, or even not by medication, because we are trying to understand if that patient can develop glaucoma in the future. But anyway, most of the times the follow-up, we have the patient that they are doing medication, and so if the investigation they give us the feedback as a result that it's very stable glaucoma. In this case, we used to give them the appointment for 6 or 9 months. But if the glaucoma the trend is very bad, in this case, I get the short time because I would like to consider to make the decision to do the surgery eventually, because according to the one of the most expert in the world, Dr. Heike Med, so the last 10 years we are changing as glaucoma surgeon. We are surgeons. We are changing the approach to the reactive versus proactive. So reactive means that we used to do the surgery when the optic nerve is going to be damaged severely. Today, with the equipment, due to the procedure that are less invasive, we should be proactive. So we need to prevent further damage on the optic nerve. And in this case, in the patient with the bad trend, I used to get the follow-up every 4 months, because in this case I can make the decision early to do eventually the less invasive surgery that is very quick, like a cataract surgery. It's not very big, so less complication, good recovery and quick recovery of vision. So, and I'm very glad that we started so we have a lot of patients now treated in 2020 and 2020-21. Obviously, 2020-21, they were more, because in 2020 it was three months of lockdown, and then anyway, that is the usually our approach on the patient.
Okay. And with it, as you talk about, preventative and proactive as opposed to a reactive approach. Just for clarity, can surgery, minimally invasive surgery, can that be used as a preventative measure, as you were sharing?
Yes, of course, of course, because we should. The most difficult things is to understand which is the target of pressure that can guarantee to us the stability of the optic nerve. Okay. So once we got it. In this case, we know how is the target that we need to achieve after the surgery done.
Okay. Now, is it reversible?
Unfortunately, no.
So no.
So it's a progressive, painless sort of loss of vision, and that's the other challenge that we have as well when the doctor prescribes the drops is patient compliance, and sometimes because they don't feel their eye pressure is high and they think, well, it's okay if I miss a couple days. And as the nerve, because the nerve is, it can't be regenerated. And so over time, slowly, the nerve starts to die away, and the patient is losing peripheral vision and they don't even realize. And unfortunately, those nerve fibers can't really be regenerated. We don't have the technology. It's like a spinal cord injury. Once we can't bring those back. And so we the doctor is working against a ticking clock, really, just to try to preserve the damage and prevent it from getting worse. So once that's happened, the patient isn't going to regain those nerve fibers, unfortunately.
Are there things, we think of other sort of ailments, and physicians would say, listen, your diet and lifestyle choices can either reverse or certainly help to mitigate. Are there things relative to, for want of a better word, diet and lifestyle that could help if either A, you think you're at risk, or B, you've been diagnosed, or C, you're saying just the other thing, prevention is better than cure.
Of course.
Are there things that we could do?
Of course, the prevention. So, unfortunately, glaucoma is doesn't give to the patient the objective symptoms. So, most of the times, the patient doesn't have any symptom. And so in this case, the prevention plan and the prevention strategy is very important. So when or the optometrist or when the ophthalmologist has the idea that optic nerve is so bad that it could develop glaucoma in the future, in this case, we need to explain very well the patient, because most of times the patient can't understand what is really the pressure. So most of patients confuse the eye pressure with the blood pressure that usually are not correlated, completely not correlated. And then, so when I, most of times for the patient, when I tell them I'm measuring the pressure, they used to put the arms, no, please, not the blood pressure, but the eye pressure.
Right.
So
we recall as children, our parents saying to us, don't sit too close to the TV, you go blind. Don't read in the dark. Different little things. Eat so much candy. Is there, not to belabor, but is there like things that we do? I mean, many of us, we read a lot because of our jobs, our studies, whichever. And is there, even though there are no signs and symptoms, you're talking about the silent, vision stealer, are there things that could impact it? Unknowingly?
I don't believe so. I think it's your main risk factors is going to be genetics, and there's not much we can do about that.
So that's the main cause of it.
Yeah.
Genetics.
So I would like to explain very well that the lifestyle for the eye pressure and for glaucoma, the lifestyle doesn't reflect on it. So the glaucoma is depending on the liquid that we have inside the eye, the aqueous. So that liquid contains so all the chemicals that need, the good chemicals that need for the tissue of the eye to get the life, the good life, the healthy. And so in the same time, in this liquid we have also the chemicals that are very bad for the eye. And then when we have the outflow that is not good, we risk obviously that the pressure increase, because the good liquid come in and the bad liquid should go out. When we don't have a good drainage by the sclem canal, that is a structure of the eye, in this case we get first the pressure higher, and then we increase the risk of cataract, because in this case the metabolism of the structure of the eye is not very good. So most of the bad chemicals remain inside the eye, and then they could increase the risk of cataract. And so if the patients start to have the cataract, the natural lens became more thicker, and then we could increase the pressure as well. So that is a very bad situation. For this reason, most of the times when I have patients with glaucoma, I used to combine to do the surgery, the cataract surgery and glaucoma surgery in the same moment, because even about the publication, the international publication, it seems that by doing surgery, combined surgery is more effective than doing the surgery in two different steps.
Yeah. You're there, I mean, you do it all one time because you can access. All right. And that surgery, if it's as intense as that, would necessitate the person being on anesthesia and perhaps out for a while, or are they awake?
No, it's a day surgery, and they're mostly awake now. Dr. Sarati had introduced these new procedures that had never been done on the island before, since he's been here in the past 2 years. And so he's had the opportunity to do about 17% more of those cases last year, just helping people. And so when he can combine it with a cataract operation, and then oftentimes the patients are having very good outcomes now, and we still monitor them and their pressure. And even though you have glaucoma, you're going to have that for life. So there's never a cure. But he's been able to, lower the pressure down to better levels, and that the patients sometimes can even reduce the amount of medications and eye drops that they're on. And so we're seeing that now, because after the surgeries have been done, and we're starting to see the ones that had them a year ago, and all of the patients are doing very well.
Yeah, so the problem is the target, as I told you before. So if the optic nerve is severely damaged, we need to get the target most of the time lower than 15 as a pressure, because that could guarantee the stability of the optic nerve. If the optic nerve is not severe damage, but the trend is bad, in this case we can get 16, 15, but it doesn't depend. I don't want to give the message that the number of the pressure is important. Everything is important. The number should be associated to the result of the investigation, because we need to get the stability of the optic nerve. That is the best result.
All right. Well, we take the final break of this particular segment. When we come back, maybe we can talk more about it and see if things like diabetes. I recall, you know, the statistics you shared relative to 7% of the Caribbean region. So, what factor does ethnicity play into it? Genetics was referenced. The notion that among certain ethnic groups, we're seeing certain diseases being more prevalent, and maybe let's see if there's a correlation.
Okay,
sounds good.
Okay,
that's the plan. Join us right after the break. So please stay tuned.
Families are like branches on a tree. We grow in different directions, yet our roots remain deeply intertwined as one. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, has remained stable, strong, and deeply rooted in the community. The past 2 years have been very difficult, but they have taught all of us the value of family and embracing our loved ones. This 2022, Savannah Pharmacy encourages everyone to get in touch with your roots, embrace your heritage, show some extra love to your neighbor, and make the year a memorable one. Time is precious. Cherish it and those you love. Savannah Pharmacy, always just around the corner, with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336 or WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045.
At Subway, we caramel a lot about our customers, so we decided to give you 2 treats in one with the new Caramel Apple Cookie. Enjoy cinnamon apples, caramel bits, and salted caramel crunch baked in, and topped with a drizzle of caramel-flavored icing. Gooey, crunchy, and yummy. Complete your Subway sandwich, pizza, or salad with the delicious Caramel Apple Cookie or any other cookie flavor and dessert, available for a limited time at all Subway locations. Subway, eat fresh.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks again for joining us, and thanks too for the time and the partnership with the Health Services Authority. And now to highlight what's happening over at their eye clinic. We have the ophthalmologist and glaucoma specialist, Dr. Sarati, together with Nurse Diane Benson. I'm glad that you were able to step away, from your desk for a bit. You're still at work, and you still have to go back and make up for this time. But hopefully, as a population, we'll get to see that we have resources here. We're seeing increasingly that 2020 presented itself quite a challenge for education, for healthcare in every aspect, and to have resources right on shore not only is potentially cost effective, but it's a time saver. It perhaps may aid in recovery, gives people a better sense of mind because they're right here, right to hand. So thanks so much for being available, for that competence and professionalism.
We're very happy to.
Thank you for the invitation. We are happy.
As you were chatting, let's ask more about it, because there is, without question, people thinking about diabetes and lifestyle and the like can impact other things, and we see the loss of vision, being one of the consequences of diabetes.
Correct.
Is there any sort of correlation or any kind of interaction between glaucoma and diabetes?
I think diabetes patients also have a higher risk of glaucoma. That's one of the risk factors.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a double whammy once we have to deal with that.
Yeah.
The best thing there, again, is just to keep with the regular routine checkups and to monitor their blood glucose levels, because that's extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have a lot of very poorly controlled diabetics that have very bad eye disease, diabetic retinopathy.
Yeah. So the impact of diabetes is on the circulatory system, and even the optic nerve is sensitive to the modification of the circulatory system, about the vessels and the veins and the arterial, because we know now that the cause of glaucoma are the compression of the optic nerve fibers due to the eye pressure of the eye, not the blood pressure, but the eye pressure of the eye, and due to the bad circulatory system in the optic nerve, and sometimes both combined. So in this case, I would like to notice that there are a group of patients that have glaucoma, but the pressure is very low. It's 10. So 10, and then the patient, doctor, but the pressure is 10, how I can get glaucoma? Because of the damage coming from the back due to the circulatory system of the optic nerve. And then, so we can get the damage of the optic nerve fibers due to some default of the circulatory system of the optic nerve. That is very important, and that could correlate the diabetes with glaucoma, but not just diabetes. For example, whole of the heart disease could be correlated with glaucoma as well. So diabetic patient is much prone to develop a very bad type of glaucoma, that is neovascular glaucoma. The neovascular glaucoma, the prognosis most of the times is very bad, because the patient is going to lose the vision. So, and sometimes with the vision lost, we need to do anyway the operation for those patients, because the neovascular glaucoma can get the pressure over 70. If you imagine that the normal pressure should be over 20, so over 70, it means that the pressure of the eyeball is incredibly high, and then the patient has strong pain, vomiting, so very terrible situation, and we should do sometimes urgently the operation to put the tube inside and to drainage the liquid and to get the pressure lower. So that's very important to know.
Wow. You wouldn't think your eye leads to nausea, right?
Yes, it can in those instances with an acute glaucoma closure attack.
So
but you would know about it, and it would probably, you would need to go to A&E. Like, it would be that severe that you would know. And that is one of the highest emergencies in ophthalmology, besides trauma.
Yeah. But sometimes even the diabetic patient that get the surgery because they got the bleeding in back of the eye, they could have that complication of neovascular glaucoma, and then we should combine the vitreoretinal surgery, so we need to remove the jelly and in the same time put the tube inside, because otherwise we don't get it sorted out. That is very, very bad situation. But anyway, sometimes like emergency, we can get in front of us this scenario, terrible scenario, and then we need to manage it.
This is where I think as we advance, and our access, we can see how the society is that much better served. You referenced earlier, of not just introducing new procedures, but the availability and increased use of what we have here. Any good things on the horizon, Diane, that may be coming on the pipeline for us?
Well, we just actually had 2 new lasers installed last week to upgrade. So there is a one called an SLT, which can treat glaucoma if they. So we have that, that's just brand new, Also to be able to treat diabetic retinopathy, and so those are just hot off the press.
Yeah.
So that's another. We had them before, but they've been upgraded, and it was greatly needed. And so we'll be able to provide just a better care for those patients, and faster, because the laser is much better.
Yeah.
So
precise.
I would like to clarify just one thing about the laser, because we should say that the SLT is one of the new option for glaucoma care. But the SLT is not definitive. So when we treat the patient with the SLT, we should explain the patient that the effectiveness of the laser should be not longer than 18 months. Just because according to my experience that I got in Europe and in UK, so some patient can extend that effectiveness for 24 months, but most of the patient, 80%, 85%, no longer than 18 months. So, and then in Europe and in UK now, we are changing to avoid the discomfort of the drops. Sometimes we used to start in the first step, instead of medication, we used to start with the laser. Until the laser will give us the evidence that is effective. So when in this case we postpone the drop after the laser done, but the laser is not definitive, because some patient, I can get the laser and then that's it. I don't need to put the drops, and I don't need to waste time to remember the drops in morning, evening. That's not the good deal, because the laser is limited as effectiveness.
And after that 18 months or so, do we have to repeat the laser again?
Yes. Every 18 months until we get the same target and the stability. Right. When the target is not the same and the stability of the optic nerve is not guaranteed, in this case we should go or through the medication or through the mixed surgery.
Well, this is where I think the patient must understand, to be an active partner in their health. But
yeah, because it, like we said, it can't be cured, and so it's always a battle just to make sure that we stay on top of everything, because we know that glaucoma can lead to irreversible loss of vision, and it's not curable, so we can't regain the vision that's lost. And so we're just very fortunate that we have such an expert on the island now with Dr. Sarati to be able to monitor and provide the care, and to be introducing these new minimally invasive surgeries for the patients. And I'm happy to be able to keep on doing the best we can to try to work in partnership with them, because the thing they need to do, like I said, is be compliant with their medication. That's number one, and follow the instructions, and then just get your eyes checked regularly so that we can catch it early.
Yeah.
So our optometrist makes the referral. A question came in asking if regular primary care physician, the GP, could also refer as well.
Yes, they can.
Yes, of course. But obviously the GP in this case, as first approach, they don't have the idea if obviously if the patient is a historical patient with problems, or diabetic patient, or so in this case, but the appropriate referral about the suspect of glaucoma is never done by the GP. It's always done by the optometrist.
Okay. Well, I certainly appreciate this. Is where we maybe we're reminded how important it is to, when we get our eyes checked, so that we can read the next installation of that book that we've been waiting on.
Yes.
Some people still read books. Make sure that we also understand the importance of looking after our eye health and checking glaucoma and being compliant with the medication and protocol treatments, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's very important, because the people should know that in the world, about 32 million people are affected by the glaucoma. But there is another news that is very important, that 50% of the population doesn't know that they are affected by glaucoma. That is the World Ophthalmology Congress news. So that's a huge
8 billion
number.
people, and half of us don't know. Well, any final thoughts, Nurse Dan, you may wish to share with us? I'm certainly looking forward to continuing discussions in the future. But
yes, I'm just thankful to be here to be part of, Glaucoma Awareness Month and to share with everybody what services we have and to continue to provide for our patients. And if anybody has any questions, they can always call through to the office as well. If I can give the number for that.
Yes,
the direct line is 244-2818. And the receptionist can direct their call.
Okay.
So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to inform the patient, and we are happy to help the community. And personally, I'm very happy to do my job in Cayman Island, and so with fantastic team, and we are going to introduce slowly, but step by step, to improve our service about glaucoma and to get it close to the international guidelines. And so I'm very proud that in the last year we stopped even because it was very difficult in the COVID period, to stop the referral for Miami and to get the care of the glaucoma care in our hospital.
Well, that's a milestone. So thank you both for your diligence. Thanks for taking time with us. And hopefully, as we have these continued discussions, more of us appreciate the value.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Anytime. Thank you very
much
for having us.
Most welcome. Well, let's pause and take a break. When we come back, we invite you to be a part of our continued discussion. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Government is hosting a press briefing today at 3 p.m. to discuss the latest developments with regards to the country's COVID-19 response. Make sure to keep it locked right here to Radio Cayman as we carry the briefing live. In international news, some flights to and from the U.S. were canceled Wednesday, even after AT&T and Verizon scaled back the rollout of high-speed wireless service that could interfere with aircraft technology that measures altitude. International carriers that rely heavily on the wide-body Boeing 777 and other Boeing aircraft canceled early flights or switched to different planes following warnings from the Federal Aviation Administration and the Chicago-based plane maker. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken warned Thursday that there would be a swift, severe response from the United States and its allies if Russia sends military forces into Ukraine. Blinken's comments in Berlin appeared to be another effort to clear up any confusion about the position of the U.S. and its NATO allies after U.S. President Joe Biden was heavily criticized for saying a minor incursion by Russia would elicit a lesser response. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden ends his first year in the White House with a clear majority of Americans for the first time disapproving of his handling of the presidency in the face of an unrelenting pandemic and roaring inflation, according to a new poll from the Associated Press, NORC Center for Public Affairs Research. More Americans disapprove than approve of how Biden is handling his job as president, 56% to 43%. As of now, just 28% of Americans say they want Biden to run for re-election in 2024, including only 48% of Democrats. Those are your latest headlines. I'm Shana Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
On a daily basis, making it easy to connect with you, our listeners. Add us to WhatsApp today, 925-3261. That's 925-3261.
Radio Cayman.
Send a text or voice note.
Can I send a request, please?
You don't really have to ask us. Just send a request.
This is a shout out to my ex.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us. It's going to be some open line as we invite you to call and share your thoughts with us. This really is remarkable. I think increasingly in our jurisdiction we look at things and we sometimes don't even know what we have here. with great respect, many of us take for granted, and then sadly, when some of us highlight, showcase, and do our best to draw what is not only needed and important information that needs to be shared, we don't always take it on board. So at the Health Services Authority, and increasingly across the entire jurisdiction, we're seeing health services in public and private sector being heavily invested, and the resources being accessed, but increasingly being more valued. So through the health services and the continuing commitment of public funds to develop and advance, we're seeing that it's going to be quite beneficial for us now and for us as we move into the future. As Dr. Zarate, the ophthalmologist over at HSA, shared, think of what it was like in 2020. The challenges of people getting overseas, for instance, and years prior, like many things, we didn't have the expertise, the resources here, and so we didn't have a choice. Now that we do, not only can it be a cost-effective measure to implement, but it may mean greater access for a larger number. So as those need to travel overseas for either treatment that can be served on shore, it's great for us all. So I commend the country's continued investment in healthcare as we do in education. Well, you want to share a thought with us? Going to be some open line, 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. Or you can WhatsApp, 1-800-534-8255. Toll-free call. You can also call 949-8037, 949-6990, or WhatsApp 925-3261. You may have heard it in our news, and it's great. Sometimes I always wonder to what extent when we, qualify things, but with the appointment of Mr. Randa Rankin to Chief Fire Officer Designate, I think it just shows what the country is capable of. The fact that we highlight, Kim Anian appointed, it should almost to some be a no-brainer, but as we develop the skill set, as we start to value and respect the resources within our country, we see that we have it. I think Mr. Rankin, has not only the competence, the commitment, but the continued respect of his colleagues and fellow fire officers, and it just positions the country that we have the competence, we have the capability, we have it within our own that we can advance. So it's good to be able to celebrate. Hopefully that'll inspire many of us to look at becoming fire officers and other uniform positions, to using our skill sets in many ways, and to appreciate that as a great way to serve the country. We don't all have to join the militia, the army, the military, or the like. There are ways to get on board. And when a public service, the civil service, has that competence, it bodes well. So again, a very, public congratulations to Mr. Rankin on his appointment. Now, are there other success stories that we're not celebrating? Are there other things that we haven't done? I was reminded recently, there are many of us who enjoy car racing. We enjoy football and other sports. Or we think back to football and we think back to the Shell Cup of what seemed to have been many years ago, and the victory coinciding with the royal visit. For some, that may have been that thing that galvanized the nation. But what about car racing? The Venerable Dean Shaw from the neighboring island visits, and is not only shown a great sense of camaraderie and healthy assistance when needed in order to get on the track, but then is soundly defeated in the race at the hands of none other than Samuel Jackson, an enthusiast who was able to parlay that passion into a level of professionalism that gives the viewing public not just value for money, but something that they would expect if they were watching that level of race in other jurisdictions. I only share those two examples to ask publicly, are we willing? Are we even aware? And do we actively set about to celebrate the successes? For a short time after the Shell Cup victory, we were singing the praises. The veterans of the day who played in that game would probably tell you it was probably one of the best games ever played. There are some who would go back to the visiting football team out of the US, the Fort Lauderdale Strikers. You don't think of the US and being much of a footballing nation, and yet the little game played at what was the agricultural grounds then on that Ash Wednesday demonstrated that we had some great skill within our own guys who didn't do much more in terms of training and to demonstrate a natural ability. The resources that were allocated to football then, from the fields to the equipment, pales in comparison to what is available now. But was the dedication, talent, and respect for the game greater? Some would say yes. That was the early 80s. Now we're, decades later. Where are we in terms of building on those successes? Whether it's football or it's car racing, the question has to be asked: are we prepared to celebrate our victories, to draw alongside the Caymanians who have achieved or are achieving, so that we can be inspired by them, we can support and nurture their success, and maybe that too will cause future generations to recognize that we can have that. We're seeing, for instance, a growing number of Caymanians interested in film studies and that sector. There was a time, unfortunately, when the interest, because of the founding of the law school, aptly named the Truman Borden Law School, that more and more Caymanians were taking up a law degree, so much so that some shared, there'll be 200 lawyers soon. Well, can that really be the case? Some would quickly say yes, but being a lawyer doesn't necessarily mean that you're an advocate before the courts as always. Being a lawyer doesn't mean that if you choose not to be called to the bar, that skill set and training can be utilized in finance, in government, and other areas, just like being an accountant. But I want to ask, as I compare that to the idea of sports, are we somehow telling our society things that mislead them? Just like we once said, there'll be too many accountants. Everybody wants to study accounting. Well, if there is an interest and the aptitude, that is where people see that not only through a successful career, but they can be handsomely rewarded. Should that benefit accrue to the populace as opposed to important labor? So whether it's law or accounting, should we not consider it? Maybe you will discuss that further when you return, if you're so motivated. Give us a shout and share with us, 949-8037, 949-6990, or toll free at 1-800-534-8255. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
In the early 1900s, the Sister Islands enjoyed a relative prosperity, with the cultivation and subsequent exports of coconut being the primary industry, as Commissioner Sanguinetti would note during his 1902 visit.
Business seemed brisk. There has been a very large coconut crop, such as not born for years, and the carrying capacity of the island vessels to deal with the export of nuts have been shipped between October and February last.
The coconut industry would continue to expand with the expansion of plantations into large tracts of unused land.
Information from this historical vignette was sourced from Founded Upon the Seas, A History of the Cayman Islands and Their People by Michael Creighton and the New History Committee.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Families are like branches on a tree. We grow in different directions, yet our roots remain deeply intertwined as one. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, has remained stable, strong, and deeply rooted in the community. The past 2 years have been very difficult, but they have taught all of us the value of family and embracing our loved ones. This 2022, Savannah Pharmacy encourages everyone to get in touch with your roots, embrace your heritage, show some extra love to your neighbor, and make the year a memorable one. Time is precious. Cherish it and those you love. Savannah Pharmacy, always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336 or WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office.
Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway, eat fresh.
This year's National Heroes Day ceremony takes place on Monday, 24th January.
Due to COVID-19, the event is not open to the general public and is by invitation only.
All uniformed services award recipients are advised that no awards will be presented on Monday. Special ceremonies will be held at a later date for uniformed services recipients on Grand Cayman and in Cayman Brac.
Monday's National Heroes Day ceremony will air live on Radio Cayman and on CIGTV's Facebook and YouTube pages beginning at 9 a.m.
The bust of the Cayman Islands' newest national hero, the Honorable Leela Ross Shire, will be unveiled along with the theme for the National Heroes Day 2023.
For more information, email the Protocol Office on nationalevents@gov.ky or call 244-1780.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for sharing with us. 949-8037, 949-8037, or 949-6990. You can call and share a thought on either line. We'll hear it the same way. Or toll free with the compliments of Flo, 1-800-534-8255. Then you can WhatsApp 925-3261. Quick telephone call just during the break. The individual, it was interesting as she was relaying her thoughts. And I said, well, come on, call in here. And she said, well, if we did that, then obviously it wouldn't just be a case of them shooting the messenger, and they would totally ignore the message. And she heard us reference education and the law school and what it has done for legal training within the country, and not just giving many, she said, like herself, the chance to get a law degree. Whether she used that to, practice and become a partner and makes lots of money in one of the big firms, whether she remains a sole practitioner and just advocates for people who somehow feel that accessing the courts because they feel aggrieved were next to impossible, or whether she used it to pursue law and politics, or whether she worked within government in relation to understanding policy, or whether she just wanted it as a, sort of feather in her cap. Have this degree certainly is one that is respected globally, despite all the jokes that we make about lawyers. It's one that provides incredible training in terms of how to analyze and interpret and apply things. And she says that the notion that, we are making the law school, like accounting, like so many other areas, less and less accessible, in her perception, to Caymanians. Now, is that a perception that you have? She exclaimed that perhaps we need to rethink the whole system of education and develop it, from the very first steps that a child takes towards formal instruction, from including, she said, those early years programs to postgraduate studies and the very first entry into university settings. And she thought, having the resources that we have, having the willingness to consider borrowing, not just, the new proposed consideration for the $400 million bullet bond, but the other $500 million prior and then the other growing commitments. Should these things, as well as the investment in the physical infrastructure, should they be a priority for any government and for the country to be actively involved? Now, she was about to say something else, I had to run into the break, but what was shared, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you think that we now need to look at that human capital development? Wasn't the phrase that she used, the investment in education and training, from the possibilities of more lawyers and accountants to people in the healthcare sector, to those who have, the skill sets that I think we all, wish we were able to do. The carpenters and the plumbers and the electricians, the roofers and the framers and the masons. Those are perhaps areas where we're not necessarily as encouraging or as respectful to appreciate their incredible value. Now, we talk about it and we hear it oftentimes on the political sort of trail where, we need technical and vocational training. But is it because of how we've labeled it, how it's positioned, that necessarily don't appreciate its importance? When we're talking to our children as their parents, do we encourage them to be considering all these other areas? If he doesn't mind, I referenced his name earlier. He is certainly well respected in his profession and as a lawyer and as a person. J. Samuel Jackson. Samuel Jackson is known to many of us, not as only a former public servant within, the legal services aspect of government, being able to help craft legislation relative to development planning, but has, for many of us, shown his aptitude and getting under the hood of a car, looking at its engine and rebuilding it and demonstrating a proficiency and a competence that you would think, sadly for many of us, we have this mistaken belief that if you're a football player and athlete, you can't be, also academic and a straight A student. We know that no longer to be the case, but how many of us can honestly say that wasn't what we were told or was actively conveyed to us in the earlier years of high school at the very least? To those who may believe, well, if you are, a profession, a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, an educator, that these other things are probably, not necessarily within your wheelhouse, or sadly are beneath you. That is far from the truth. I think many would quickly agree with me when I say that, if you're able to service a boat engine or a car engine, if you're a plumber, electrician, or carpenter, or a mason, that skill set, if not exceeds the lawyers, the doctors, the engineers, and like, is certainly on par. It's just that for whatever reason, some societies seem to celebrate certain things while consciously and sadly sometimes, unknowingly are openly disrespectful to others. Well, what is your perspective? 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. If education is something you want to talk about, if it's a transformative approach, let's do so. And then the other thing we want to reference, the gentleman who called towards the end of the program yesterday, talking, gave his age, in the 40s. He talked about how things are changing and came on what is important. And then reference, two earlier calls, the 18-year-old and the 30-something-year-old who shared about the concerns relative to employment and promotion, to being able to afford to buy a piece of land, to build a house, and that dream that may have been once, on everybody's sort of minds and ambitions, they'll go own their own homes. Well, for some of us, is that a mistaken sort of and misplaced sense of where we could and should be heading? Now, there are jurisdictions where you never own, not just because of the political or economic or social structure. It's just how it is. The question that should be asked, if given the relative small size of Cayman, should we look at what home ownership is? Should we all decide to, be able to own a home, or is it that it's a rental situation, a life lease at best? Now, what about the gentleman who called yesterday to remind us that considering the bullet bond, for instance, is that something that government should consider, given that after 15 years or 30 years, as in the proposed case, you now have to, in addition to making those scheduled interest payments, repay the full amount at that predetermined time. But as he was referencing at the end, the notion that the practice of a reverse mortgage that we're seeing in many jurisdictions was something that is being touted and heavily considered within our jurisdiction. Now, on the face of it, it might sound good. You own a property after a period of time, 15, 20, 30 years, depending on it, you've repaid it, now you own it. Or maybe you didn't have to borrow, you didn't have to have any lien against it. You owned it outright all along. But you found yourself at a certain age, you're now retired, your income isn't what it needs to be in order to support the lifestyle that you either have, had, or wish. So you borrow. And at the end of the day, you've got the use of that money, and then that house, that property, now at your demise, instead of going to your estate and being a part of, what you hope to leave as a legacy for your heirs, now is now rested in the hands of the person or the institution from which you borrowed that money to continue that lifestyle. Maybe it wasn't even to live and to enjoy your golden years. Maybe it was part of the expenditure was to pay for medical care, or that extended care that you needed, or that assisted living you needed. Considerations that not necessarily are being perhaps sufficiently discussed. Think about it. We see the growing cost of healthcare. We're seeing the challenges many have in relative to health insurance, and wondering to what extent those people following surgery for a period of time, or after some accident, mishap, or the like, they need assisted care for, all day long, or maybe for a number of hours. Is that something that they can afford? Is it something that is provided for within the insurance coverage? Even if it is, does the person have to pay? And if so, to what extent? Things that are being discussed now, but is it something that needs to be higher on the agenda and given greater priority? So we invite you to share on those thoughts as well. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Until February 1st, CUC's subcontractors will be conducting tree trimming between 9 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. from Frank Sound Road to the Queens Highway. Motorists should exercise caution due to temporary lane blockages. Landowners, it is your responsibility to maintain the vegetation on your properties to avoid future tree trimming costs, but are reminded not to trim vegetation within 10 feet of power lines. For more information, contact 949-5200 or email service@cuc.ky.
Talk today. but I do have some questions.
Talk today. Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for sharing with us. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp, 925-3261. This listener, just sent in a quick message relative to the idea that, let's see if I can find a way to read this to us as it's sent. The listener's commenting on the fact that even if we were to round the population to the 100,000 now, there are those of us who thought it was more than that. We've seen preliminary numbers that indicated initially that the government was using one sum relative to the reporting of its COVID cases, and then that went up to a few thousand more. Now, according to what we recall, it's now back into the mid-60s or thereabouts. But the message says, irrespective of what the actual number is, if we do it per 100,000, and we would have consider that the Cayman's population as it is now is 100,000, do we expect to have all the things that larger places would have, the universities, the healthcare, and the like? Well, I just sent back a message and asking, why not? Should one person not expect the very best of others, or others expect the best of that one person? May not be the same thing, but just because it's a small jurisdiction with a relatively small population when compared to other jurisdictions, should we not aspire to having an education system that is the very best that we can at that time invest in, either through partnership or even through building our own space? Now, I did not say this to the individual, not intending for it to be argumentative, but if a government, and since the reference is that with the Cayman context of the population being relatively small, if we have a country where there is significant, public debt, consideration to increase, borrowings, not just by this administration, but, subsequent administrations, how is that money to be utilized? Now, you would say, well, are we getting value for money? For every dollar spent, how much of it is for recurrent expenditure? How is it being utilized? If, that $1 can get us 2 distinct items, are we prepared to do that? Or do we want to spend $2 and only get half of the item? Some would say that's probably how the governments work, not just here, elsewhere. You spend a whole lot more to get a lot less. Now, if that's the mindset and the perception, even if it's not the reality, what are we doing to address both? If it's the reality, are we accepting of it? That, this government is going to be, ineffective, inefficient, costly. Well, why does it have to be? Should it not be the other way around? Whether it's education or healthcare, if it is, in fact, the government that is doing it, then the government, the country, should have greater resources at its disposal. There are places where, the public service is, the premium place to work. Others is looked at as, not that nice. What is the perception here, and why should it not be the best? If you honestly look at your friends and family and even the service that you receive, you would, I believe, agree with me that we have absolute competence and professionalism within the public service. Now, why not look at it in education? Some jurisdictions, the public schools, the government schools, are the premium schools, the top-notch schools. In other places, the perception may have been that they're less than. They're not given the resources. The question is, why is that perception? If that's the perception, why is it the reality not being addressed? If it's the government, should it not have the very best resources available relative to other places that may not have the backing of a government? Now, what are we willing to accept? What are we willing to do to make it better? 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp 925-3261. Then the other thought that we're sort of looking for one of our listeners and actively encouraging response was the whole notion that too many times, I think, as this person shares this comment, too many times, we want, and I know if I best way to phrase it is how the person has it, but the notion that you only have $1, but you want to get $10 worth, so you have a champagne taste in a bare budget, is what this person phrases. Is that the problem? Is that one of the challenges that our parents used to tell us, that eyes bigger than your stomach, greedy choke puppy, phrases that we probably heard for often and maybe not sufficiently paying attention to. It's not a case of putting your hat higher than you can reach it, but be prudent when we think of the cliches that are now sort of referenced, but the things that ancestors, our parents and their parents lived by. You cut your sail according to your cloth. Is it a case that, one, we don't really know what is it that we're doing, but two, sometimes we're not willing to, push beyond what's there, not to show off, not to try to attain the impossible, but because it's hard and difficult, and perhaps at a level where we don't think we can attain it, are we unwilling to even try? And is that the challenge, that we fear failure more than an attempt? And is that part of the indoctrination, whether subtle or otherwise, whether it was deliberate? We look at our schools and we wonder sometimes how we're assessed. Now, we may have gone too far and given everybody a trophy for just, showing up, and maybe not necessarily ensuring that when people put in a great and valiant effort, that they're recognized and rewarded and celebrated, but not just because they show up. Everybody gets a trophy. That may be how you do it. It may not be, but are we willing to even consider how we should be doing it, and why we're doing it the way we are? Is it that we need to change it, or is it that we need to, defend and promote it because it's viable, it's proven its worth, and anything we do will improve it? Not, as someone shared, make it that much harder. So 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or 949-6990, or WhatsApp 925-3261, and relate to us. Now, the other consideration that hopefully does not in of itself cause people to feel affronted or agitated or even somehow become overly concerned. But we know that on Saturday, as the message was shared with us earlier, that there are individuals who recognizing that freedoms and democracies have to be not just continually maintained, but they need to be, actively celebrated. And we understand from many that just like men across the world as a part of a public demonstration stance, there's going to be an assembly on Saturday right in front of the governor's house between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. And the impetus for this, as some have shared, is to consider our freedoms relative to the vaccine mandates and things that are tyrannical, unconstitutional, should the demonstration to people. We're increasingly being told that within the UK, the policing authority in one of the metropolitan areas seemingly started an inquiry into a possible injury and the like as a result from people making allegations that they have suffered following some of these vaccinations. There are court rulings, U.S. Supreme Court, I think Friday last, in response to its president, vaccine mandate, suggesting that those things are unconstitutional. Now, there are people who have shared, well, that there's a greater good to be served. We hear that not just in the UK or the US, but even in Canada, potential transshipment across the US and Canada could be impacted if truck drivers and the like are further hindered or moving the goods that many of us, even here in the Cayman, could be affected by it, from building supplies to the foods that we eat. Are these things that we're all about and misinterpreting? Or are there things that are so important that we're not even paying sufficient attention to understand the consequence upon us? Now, the beauty of being able to sit in the company of great men and women is that you can, if the environment is one that has become comfortable, that there's no judgment and condemnation, that people can speak freely, you can come away with not just an informed perspective and knowledge about the things that are happening, but people's perspective on certain things. Now, is that what is sorely lacking? Can you imagine being in a space where people are unwilling and outright afraid to ask a question, to share an opinion, to even share something that is factual? Here is something that transpired, whether it was yesterday or whether it was a century ago. And to know that it's an accurate, recollection of what transpired, and then an honest and frank discussion about the impact, the consequences. Is that something that is lacking globally? Is it something that is healthy here without condemnation? Or is it, as many have said, the unwillingness to share a thought publicly is because of the ridicule, the potential for being ostracized, and the real threat, as some see it, of being maligned? Well, if it is, then what are we doing to address it? 8949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. Let's pause and take a break. When we come back, more Talk Today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Families are like branches on a tree. We grow in different directions, yet our roots remain deeply intertwined as one. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, has remained stable, strong, and deeply rooted in the community. The past 2 years have been very difficult, but they have taught all of us the value of family and embracing our loved ones. This 2022, Savannah Pharmacy encourages everyone to get in touch with your roots, embrace your heritage, show some extra love to your neighbor, and make the year a memorable one. Time is precious. Cherish it and those you love. Savannah Pharmacy, always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336 or WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045.
At Subway, we caramel a lot about our customers, so we decided to give you 2 treats in one with the new Caramel Apple Cookie. Enjoy cinnamon apples, caramel bits, and salted caramel crunch baked in, and topped with a drizzle of caramel-flavored icing. Gooey, crunchy, and yummy. Complete your Subway sandwich, pizza, or salad with the delicious Caramel Apple Cookie or any other cookie flavor and dessert, available for a limited time at all Subway locations. Subway. Eat fresh.
You, members of your family or household, could be required to isolate at a moment's notice. Ensure that you have stocked enough food, water, prescriptions, and sanitary items to last for 14 days. Have a plan if living arrangements require adjustments. And remember that all deliveries must be contactless. For more information on how to prepare and the support services available, visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
The chairman of the Liquor Licensing Board would like to remind liquor license holders in the bar and nightclub categories that there is to be no music and or no dance permitted on Sundays. The Royal Cayman Islands Police Service will be monitoring all businesses to ensure that they are following the requirements and conditions on their licenses. Non-compliant businesses could result in prosecution or the non-renewal of licenses. For more details, please contact the Department of Commerce and Investment on 244-2287, 244-6677, or email enforcement@dci.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for sharing with us. 949-8037 or 949-6990. Or you can WhatsApp 925-3261 and share your thoughts with us. Likewise, there's a Flow toll-free line. I guess for those who are non-Flow customers, you may not access it, but try it out and see. For everybody else, it's 1-800-534-8255. Just, we want you to use for the record. It's always, interesting to listen to the discussions and the calls and engagement. And with that, we want to remind you that at 3 p.m., there's a government press briefing. So we'll take it to you live here on Radio Cayman, so you can listen as well and certainly be informed. So at 3 p.m. This afternoon. And from there, we'll know exactly what is the plan until, we find it again. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp 925-3261. We had a chance earlier to sit with someone who had shared, according to their thoughts, an idea with the last government relative to some of its programs and how to save money, but also how to consider more strongly the idea of rehabilitation. And not just for those who have been incarcerated or are about to be, but for those people who are there now. And in particular, the idea that recidivism is seemingly high now. He said he didn't know what it was, heard certain comments that led to the perception, at least, that it is quite high, the incidence of recidivism. And he said that if you think of what prison is now, he shared that his background isn't in criminology, even though he took a number of courses in politics and society and social justice and the like out of interest, and ever since had that notion of wanting to understand how the sort of injustices, the impact of people's decisions have affected their lives. And in visiting not just the prison here, but other prisons when he was studying, to get a feel for what it is like. And he shared that many there had a sense that they were unfairly treated, even if they had committed the act for which they were incarcerated. But once there for a period of time, they became sort of, as his words, institutionalized, conditioned, and accepting that this is what life has in store and this is what they've become. And he shared that, having gone through 2020, like a lot of people in his circle, realizing that you were now confined. He says initially he wasn't in Cayman, and where he was at, the restrictions were significant. The penalties, seemingly, or the threat of penalties, and the fear amongst a number of people in that small area, he said, were rampant, that you were confined to the space in which you were. And he felt for a while as if he was in prison. And I want to share maybe some of his thoughts, if you remind me. But let's take this caller. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
How are you doing?
Hey, how are you today?
I'm fine. A little tired work, you know.
Yeah, well, you work hard, right? Good to hear from you all the same.
You always ask me about solution for public transport.
Yes, sir.
I think today I want to speak about solutions. And the solution is the Minister of Tourism, Kenneth Bryan.
Mm-hmm.
He opened a training program for 50 public bus drivers. Like the Ministry of Tourism do a training program for 50 drivers to follow the rules, follow the regulation, know how to talk to tourists, and replace them in place of the work permit holders, public bus drivers. That will solve the issue of public transport. That's one solution we can do in this country, and I think there is a lot of Caymanians out of job today. They need to ease the regulation. To drive public bus, you don't need to read and write. I mean, always they want read and write and all other nonsense. I mean, bus driver can drive public bus. A lot of them come here, they don't know how to write and read, and they drive in public bus and behave in bad. And in this country, we need to replace those work permit holder public bus drivers, and we need to see this country clean up from those who make this mess in public bus transportation. I'm not gonna stop talk about this subject until it's solved. And you see the video get thousands. The one Quincy Brand did, it gets over 10,000 views about this issue. The public bus transport system. Quincy Brown did a video and it gets over 10,000 views last time I see it. So I think people are interested to see solution for this issue. It is a big problem in this country, and the governor needs to step in this matter. Mr. Manderson needs to change the director of public transport and need to put the legislation assembly need to put power of a police officer in hand of inspector, to give tickets to those buses who don't comply with the rule. I think this is one of the important solutions. We need solution. We don't need to talk every day about this issue. We need to see all of these drivers who misbehave out of the system, and we need to see the system is straightened up, and that's the responsibility of Kenneth Bryan. He is the minister. He need to step in and take responsibility and bring a program to train 50 Caymanians to drive public bus, and we get rid of the bad drivers and we replace those get training to replace them. If the owners of the buses say yes or no, they have to comply with the laws, and the legislation assembly needs to give a power of a police officer to the inspectors of the public bus transport. This is solution for the whole issue of public bus transport. If the owners, private owners, don't want to comply with this, then the government have to take the bus business over, and they have government buses have to run.
If I could, and I appreciate you for giving us some consideration and offering up, that perspective. Let me ask two things though. First, given that it's so far, to the extent that you're probably one of the few, if not the only, that have publicly lamented on the the situation as is, and then we've had a few of the other operators and owners call in to say, well, really the problem is you. How much of this do you think is, a personal, private sort of back and forth, or is this really a systemic issue that has been ignored?
Yeah, it's been ignored a long time. I mean, people are suffering. People are in this country, that they can't afford, to buy cars, and we have too much cars in the road. People want to use the public bus system, but it's not reliable anymore, and that's why we have to see too much cars in our road, and we have to see the traffic. We have to see this public bus transport system is creating a lot of problems, and if we don't solve that, we'll see more cars in the road. People have to buy cars to go to work, and it's a problem. And those bus drivers, all, unfortunately, we have to be frank. They not all is bad. We have to be truthful. There is a lot of good drivers, the majority. I'm not saying all the drivers bad. There's 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 drivers bad, and those need to come out the system. We need to see training for Caymanians to drive public bus. We need to see reliable public bus in Cayman because this problem needs to be solved. People need to go to work. How many people lose their job because they late to work? They live in the Eastern District. That's a problem long time. Even I remember one bus driver was rude to the MLA of East End one time, and he gets punishment 1 year. But why those public bus drivers don't get punishment when they rude to citizens, not to MLAs? So we have to make justice in this country. We have to see that there is a reliable bus system in this country, and we need to see solutions. I'm not going to stop talking about the public bus system until I see all of these bad drivers gone from the system. If they don't go from the system, then the system will be not working for us as the people. And then this country will be a lot of people losing their job. Some of them Caymanians, some of them foreigners. They will be losing their job because... All right, thank you, and have a good day. Wait.
All right. Hey, thanks very much, man. Thank you for that. And as we look at the whole scenario, we head into the news break, but invite others to call. And the question is it that we have a lone voice with the courage and conviction to publicly champion something that has been ignored? Or is it that it's a systemic issue and it's not there? Or is it that thing which is being advocated is just an agitator, not necessarily reflective of the real situation as we see it? Well, the press briefing is at 3 p.m., an hour from now, but in a few minutes we'll have the headline news at 2. So you can tune in for the press briefing. So stay tuned. Just keep your radio on, as most of us do, to Radio Cayman, and hear it live here as well. We'll pause and take the break, but when you come back, do you want to share your perspective on that caller's perspective? Well, do so. 1-800-534-8255 or 949-6990. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Families are like branches on a tree. We grow in different directions, yet our roots remain deeply intertwined as one. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, has remained stable, strong, and deeply rooted in the community. The past 2 years have been very difficult, but they have taught all of us the value of family and embracing our loved ones. This 2022, Savannah Pharmacy encourages everyone to get in touch with your roots, embrace your heritage, show some extra love to your neighbor, and make the year a memorable one. Time is precious. Cherish it and those you love. Savannah Pharmacy, always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336 or WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. Remember that there is a press briefing at 3 p.m. today. We want you to be informed, so you stay tuned to Radio Cayman. We'll have it for you. And a quick apology. Sometimes the technology is a great thing. It's there at our disposal. We can leverage it heavily. Other times, it just doesn't work the way we want it to. I always say it like money, and technology is a good servant, but a bad master. So apologies for that. The computer issues caused us not to bring you news as we had hoped. But we have a diligent team right on top of it, so we'll get that resolved quickly. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or 949-6990, and you can WhatsApp 925-3261. Now, the last caller, someone would recognize his voice and draw alongside and say, you know what, got to commend him for being such a public stalwart, sharing his perspective. Others would say, well, public is the word they use, stalwart, not necessarily. But do you see this good or bad? Is it that, like many things, we ignore what is there until it becomes such a festering sore that, develops into a cyst that becomes something cancerous, and then it leads to the demise? Well, we tend to often look at it that way. It may not be the best metaphor to use, but the challenge is that we see something and we do nothing. We don't even say anything. Or is it that it is a somewhat shared? There is no issue. The issue is of one and just agitating. But how do we know if allegations go unfounded or unchallenged? 949-8037 as you go to our phones. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. Billy Sinamba here. How are you and your viewers?
Hopefully all are well. I am very thankful. Some days you just look at life and you face it head on. You say, thank you, God.
Well, who was that? Was it Neil Diamond who said some days are diamonds, some days are gold,
I said, well, some days are diamonds and some days are stone. Some days the hard times won't leave me alone.
Well, you can go and they're all ups and downs.
Yeah.
Well, I've been listening to you talk, really since for a while now, and I see you did touch upon some of the legal issues. I thought, well, let me just give you a very brief update on my case, and then after that I want to address the general issues that you raised about training and opportunities.
Right, thank you.
Yeah. What has happened about my case is that there's a new development. I have just written a letter to the governor, and I've also filed a formal objection regarding my Court of Appeal case.
Mm-hmm.
You see, finally, I have come to the realization that I am highly unlikely to win my appeal. And the reason is because all judges are judges in their own cause. And what I mean by that is, one of my main arguments, which I'll be taking to the Court of Appeal, is that under the Grand Court Act, a judge of the Grand Court does not enjoy immunity from being sued if they have acted maliciously.
Mm-hmm.
And that is from Section 29. I think that's very, very clear. But you see, the problem is I'm going before the same judiciary to go and tell the same judiciary that, you know what, you as a judiciary, if you act maliciously, according to the law, I can sue you.
Mm-hmm.
And I am expecting that same judiciary to say, oh, yes, we have just looked at the law here. Yes, you can sue us. Yes, so we are going to endorse your right to sue us. Do you think that is likely to happen? It is not likely to happen. And what happened is, you see, when initially I brought my case, I trusted the system. I said, because the law is so clear, whoever sits on this case will see that actually they can be sued if they act maliciously. I went through one judge. He said, no, that's not what he says. I went through the second judge. He also says that's not what he says. And to tell you the very truth, they are being intellectually honest because it's very, very clear. So I decided finally that even if I take it to the Court of Appeal, is there a reasonable expectation really that they will take a different view because they are part of the same judgeship? So basically what I have done is I've cited the Judicial Code of Conduct. The Judicial Code of Conduct says very, very clearly that if anybody has got an interest in a matter, they should not sit on it. So all the judges in Cayman have got an interest in the matter, so they shouldn't sit on it. So I've written to the governor to say you should appoint special judges to sit on this case. I've also filed a formal notice of objection with the Court of Appeal. I've sent it to the registry. The procedure is, of course, they'll stamp it and return it to me, but I've filed it. I think that this is the only way that it can ever work, and because I plan to take this matter to the Privy Council, and I think I've got enough in terms of what I've cited in terms of the Judicial Code of Conduct that if you are interested, you should recuse yourself. So we'll see how that goes. Now, regarding you said something about opportunities for training regarding lawyers, accountants, and those kinds of professions. You know, Dwayne, I've always asked the question. Truman Borden Law School was established about 35 years ago. Right? About 35 years ago. I don't understand why to this day you've got hardly any Caymanians in the portfolio of legal affairs. And there is no like indigenous Caymanian who is a judge or even a magistrate. I don't know, maybe there's somebody I'm not aware of. How can it be that there is a local law school and it has been there for 35 years, and you've got a government which, for the most part, to be frank, has been awash in money. They've got money to be able to sponsor people. Why is it that up to now, the legal profession in government particularly, and even in the private sector, is dominated by people from outside? I'm not saying they are all mercenaries. No, everybody's, I think most people make a decent living. But when you think about where Caymanians are in the legal field, they've been totally kept out. And to me, this is what has led even to this legal services bill, where basically the government sold out to foreign interests. And the reason that has happened is because the local attorneys who were trying to fight that legislation and the outsourcing of work were not able, although they did a very good job, to sensitize the public, but it was they didn't have enough numbers on their side to be able to go to the government and be able to lean on them. And to me, I think that's a problem. I think that now the Chief Justice is retiring, Caymanians must sit down and try to find out whether this is a good time to find an indigenous Caymanian Chief Justice. Because if you don't, then if they appoint a Chief Justice from outside, say who is about maybe 50 or 55 years old, that person will be there until they are 70 years old. In other words, for the next 15 to 20 years. And so long as you have a Chief Justice who is not local, that person will always try to keep people out. And to me, I've always said that, for example, in the portfolio of legal affairs, I will stick my head out and say that the current Attorney General has never wanted Caymanians to be able to have positions of authority in there. Okay, that's my opinion. People may disagree with it, but that's my opinion. And to me, that doesn't make sense. And then you've got this thing that even after people are trained as lawyers and they get a degree, you talked about certain people who get a degree and then later on they do not are not called as attorneys because they don't go through the qualification process. Some of the people, actually, the problem, as you will know better than I do, it is because there is an issue of articling. It is almost impossible to get articles. You have to know this one and that one. How can that be? I came from a country, although I was called to the bar more than 40 years ago, but I came to I was called to the bar originally in a country where if government sponsored me, I was guaranteed articles because the government said once we sponsor you to go and study, it is a waste of time if after that you do not qualify as an attorney at law. To me, there should be a program, for example, to say every single year there should be at least 4 people in the portfolio of legal affairs who are guaranteed articles. In fact, in my view, it should be maybe 4 people in the legal department, maybe 2 people in legislative drafting, maybe another 4 people in the DPP's chambers, people who are guaranteed. I don't see why Caymanians have to beg in their own country to find articles. And to me, I think it's a problem of the political will to do this. You know, Dwayne, I would love if I could take maybe a set of Caymanians, maybe 5 Caymanians, take them to the country where I came from, and then they can see how the country, when it got independence, the programs it put in place to ensure that local people were being allowed to find a place. I became a head of department when I was approximately 30 years old. I might have been 32, about 30 years old. And how I became a head of department was after I qualified as a lawyer and I was called to the bar in 1977, December. I worked for a year. I was a prosecutor, and I was also prosecuting when I was doing my articles as well. I prosecuted a little bit after that as well. And then I went to England for 5 years, for 5 months. I studied legislative drafting and other things. I went back home, and then I was there for something like about another 5 years, and went to Canada, 2.5 years, got a master's in legislation, Master of Laws, and then I went back home. By that time, I was reaching a total period of study as well as work of almost 10 years. I was told, the expatriate who was there was told very clearly, when our person comes back from Canada, he's taking over the position because we think that he's fit to take over. I took over the position, no hassle, and I performed, I think, well in that position. But somehow in Cayman, you can have people who are sponsored by government. They go overseas, they come back, they've got 10, 12, 13 years experience, they are still on the same salary, and experts continue being employed.
Something that we should consider. All right. Billy, hey, thanks for sharing that. We're able to end it. All right.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. Thanks, man. Let's take the other caller, Ms. Susan. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling. Hello. Good afternoon. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for calling. 1-800-534-8255 or 949-837. And, when the boss is in the chair, she says, you know what? Let's follow the whip. Just like, the political whip. Well, Susan's in charge. Let's pause now for that final break. And when we come back, we'll take your calls. Stay tuned.
Families are like branches on a tree. We grow in different directions, yet our roots remain deeply intertwined as one. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, has remained stable, strong, and deeply rooted in the community. The past 2 years have been very difficult, but they have taught all of us the value of family and embracing our loved ones. This 2022, Savannah Pharmacy encourages everyone to get in touch with your roots, embrace your heritage, show some extra love to your neighbor, and make the year a memorable one. Time is precious. Cherish it and those you love. Savannah Pharmacy, always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336 or WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for sharing with us. as we take a couple of the calls. Good afternoon, welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good evening, Mr. Sterling. How are you?
Very blessed, very thankful, sir. How about yourself?
We got a beautiful day today. Little nice breeze and a beautiful, blessed sunshine from above.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, the Cayman Islands is blessed. As bad as you can get it, it's still blessed. You know?
Yeah, true, yeah.
Mr. Sterling, I want to agree with Mr. Billy.
Mm-hmm.
I know of cases that Caymanian children has got scholarships from government, went overseas and studied, came back, and some of them were lucky, real lucky, to get employment. And when they get employment, they only work if they're lucky. Not all, some will go on for a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
What happens? I've been around and I listened to a lot of comments. The HRs, most of the HRs on the island are not Caymanians. That's number one. Number two, the HR got their eye on a family member or a friend to come to work in that position. And when they see the Caymanian working and advancing, they start to bully them, start to, all kind of things they do to the Caymanians. They discourage the Caymanians so bad that they either have to leave or they do them so bad that they fire them. And I'm known of a case that a young lady went over to England for 5 years from a government scholarship, came back, was working for government. The HR would antagonize that child all the time, finding fault with them because they were advancing. And it came that the child couldn't take it no more, and she put in her resignation, and the HR come and tell her, well, I'll call, now this is a Caymanian now, she said, I'll call, get your papers ready for immigration so that you can go home. So the girl said to her, go home? She said, every 5 o'clock, I goes home. I live in town. That's where I live. So I don't know what, that HR thought that the child was a foreigner and said was so glad to get rid of her. So this is what's going on, Mr. Sterling. The HR department is foreign. Most of them, you check around, most of them is foreign. And like what Mr. Billy just said, which country, I don't know any, that they don't have their own judge. They got plenty of lawyers, plenty of attorneys, but neither judge or magistrate. They always got to be foreigners here. They don't know the culture of the island. I used to work in the courts. I used to work with Judge Moody, Judge Hercules, and Judge Hercules, Judge Moody, and another one gentleman, I can't remember his name, and Mr. Ramsey. And they most of them were from Jamaica, so they knew the culture, the Caribbean culture. And they always would tell me, they said, how can a country bring in magistrates or judges from another country that has no idea of the culture of that country that they're coming to work in? It's not fair to the people. I always heard Judge Hercules and Judge Moody with that, you know. So what Mr. Billy is saying is true. And the Caymanian don't care how much degrees they got. They're going to get a job if they lock us it for 6 months or 8 months, and they're going to get rid of them. Or they're going to do them so bad that they can't stay. So that system been in Cayman, and it don't look like no government can change that system. And it's very bad, because I know they got people that if they're not qualified enough for a judge, that they can be trained because they got a lot of knowledge, a lot of common sense, and a lot of experience with law.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that system not going to stop. But it's the HRs that causing all this problem, Mr. Sterling. So you have a good day.
Right.
I'm sorry to the Caymanian people. Sorry. The government give them scholarships and then they come back, they're not going to job. That make any sense? And then if they get a job, they're bringing in a foreigner. I don't know the reason why. They're bringing in a foreigner, and the Caymanian got to train them, and then after that, they overtake the Caymanian. But I'm very glad and I'm congratulating that young man, I think Mr. Rankin, the fire chief, the Caymanian fire chief. Thank God for him as well. We had another one that was qualified for a fire chief, but they didn't give it to him, Mr. Roswell McLaughlin. He was there for years. And he was qualified. He would act. He could act as deputy, and he could act, but he couldn't be in charge. So I don't know if you can act or you can't be in charge. It's just different title, but they're doing the job, you know. That's my opinion. So you have a good day, Mr. Sterling.
And to you, sir. Thank you, too. And then as we go to the phones, as a listener says, a lot of the callers today raise some very serious and important issues to be addressed. The government needs to have some sort of monthly public panel to hear and address our issues. Okay, let's take this other call. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon to you, Mr. Sterling.
And to you, sir. How are you?
Just fine, thank you. I listen to the other callers here. It's very interesting. You know, I will repeat again my favorite word, and it's not that we can't, it's that we won't. Remember that. We can. There's always the ability of our elected parliament to pass laws to do certain things. Remember, we had a Caymanian protection law. We threw it out the window. The same thing at the request of the powerful foreign entities here. And anyhow, I don't want to really get into that too deeply complex thing, but it isn't as complex as we think. As problems can be solved a lot simpler than we think if we just apply courage to it and do it. There is the brain power, there's everything there to solve the bus problem, which is a big problem, the public bus system. But it can be solved quite simply. We know that. There is the brain power there to do it. There is the advisory part of the civil service to give the minister the advice, and then he must, as elected person, remember you're elected representative, because you can't have 23,000 or 24,000, whatever the list is now, going and saying, well, let's do this, sir, or let's do that. They all have some different ideas. Collectively, it bonds together in that person, and this is what we have elections for. Mr. Churchill, who made that famous speech about the word courage, many of the speeches that he made, if a politician was to make those, the gas came and he made it as England, and so forth. Oh my God, it would be persecuted, it'd be lambasted, the next thing would be to string him up. That's it. That's where our courage has gone, that we can't accept these facts. And we see daily, practically in that huge country, United States, where the majority of television stations, we know they make enormous amounts of money. Those news anchors make many times the salary of the President of the United States, and they're just actors. They're prodded and controlled by acting coaches and so forth. And a lot of the things they say can be inaccurate, but they have lawyers there for they're paying them millions of dollars a month just get them out of making public mistakes and so forth. And this is it. The focus is on what's wrong with the politicians there. Instead of them, like the two great antagonists, Russia and China, they're repressive countries. They don't care about, they're not thinking about what Mr. Putin does privately as the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Mr. Boris Johnson, going through all this ridiculous nonsense when there are so many great issues happening around the world that these countries are China and another totally repressive society and government, not the society, that they do, they laugh at the Western world, that focusing on destroying themselves innerly, and they go about and do what they want to do because they see the weakness in us and focusing on these things little petty nonsense that every human is going to make a mistake every now and then. It's going to happen, as Mr. Johnson did, the Prime Minister. Let's put apart from that and focus on the serious issues. We have serious issues here also we've got to focus on, and we can get it done. One of them, we're going to have to come to grips with the gambling thing, that the government doesn't lose all that money they could be taxing. And it is something that can be simply solved, and the government makes some money out of it. We have that issue. One thing that I've noticed for years, that it has been mentioned, and let us close out with this, and we haven't managed to do it. And we can do it, I think, if we have the proper push from our parliamentarians. And it's very important that we should be able to get Caymanians the same type of visa privileges that British citizens enjoy. We have the same passport saying the same thing. We're Her Majesty's citizens, essentially. And yet still we have to get waivers, which is a very, very good thing that Stormont got for us, 1948, I think it was. But still, we could get those if we were to push the issue. It's been talked about for years. But we have to have the courage to insist with the British government, make these pushes in our constitution that we can get these things. We can get it, I believe, if we make that push. The same privilege that they have, that they go to the United States without this one entry waiver system and so forth. I'll just close with that, Sterling. There's lots more I could say, but just to focus on that word, courage. They can do it. It's just the courage. It's simple. Most of our problems are simply solved. They can be. We don't need to focus on commissions and forming studies and doing all this and talk. All we need to do is get up and do what simply can be done. We know it. We have the technocrats. We have the advisory council. We have all sorts of things. Let's do it. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you too, sir. Really appreciate it. And let's take perhaps the final call. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon. Rambo speaking.
Hey, Rambo. How are you, man?
God, thank God, health and strength. Sterling, you know, Monday, I plan to call you afterwards, February, but to my day off. I appreciate my time flexible. Sterling, the last call, careful. It's simple simplicity. That I worked for the last couple of days, simplicity. Right? Like, gambling and herbs, domestic, that can be solved. Solve it, to pay a debt or deficit. You tweak that, complicate it, literally, the whole 9 yards. Okay? Sterling, right now, like you say again, those superpower countries, they don't care now. Right? But as far as healthcare, we train the strategy of tactics. Right? Who have a political office, right? Who step up or fall down. But anyhow, that's the element, successful assertiveness. Okay? But those other countries, they don't put the Harvard or intense confusion. They got to do what they got to do. You said, if it is the last caller, to start in differently, it's all about intercultural business and commerce to benefit everyone in Cayman Islands. I mean, someone like too radical, but starting that for the last 3 days I've been calling you, I try to trust myself. Right? A hungry man, vice versa. You understand? And that's the hurting Cayman Islands. Right? So, who won't have a tertiary education, white collar job, whatever, expenditure, debts, bills, whatever. You said what I'm saying? Down to the whole pyramid. So, like I said, it's a solution. Domestic, solvent. Pay the debts, deficit, free health, free education, free beautification for infrastructure, and whatever. You understand? Turn around time. Right? Complete the task, potentially, like long term. You understand? And these everybody collecting the big pain, this and that. You understand? Hello. You understand? But I understand, they understand now. You know where I'm from. I understand. But that's Cayman, typical Cayman.
Yeah.
You understand? You feel me? But suddenly we talk better. Because we have our next caller, your time wrapping up, your time relaxing. Suddenly we talk better.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Towan. And that's the caller's reference, even the message that a lot of issues to be addressed. Is there a way that we can, crowdsource, bring it together with the intent, as the caller from yesterday talk about, unity, find a way that we can collectively move forward, but at the same token, ensuring that we provide opportunities. Well, tomorrow is already Friday, and the weekend, is going to be a long one as we celebrate. So as we think about it, they may not be traveling to our sister islands. But there is a press briefing at 3 p.m. today, so we ask you to stay tuned to Radio Cayman. Be informed as it's brought to you live. Now, join Mr. Art in the morning for the record. He has always informative discussion, great panelists, and just his expertise and experience alone can guide us in many respects. Until tomorrow, my friends, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Shaken yet standing firm.
I was not built to break.
This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.